everybody. It is a beautiful late September morning. This video is for really two reasons. Number one, I just want to say hello, and I'm enjoying the first cool weather day of 2020 fall time, and which means I get to wear my favorite Raging Cajun hoodie, and I get to talk about the gumbo that I'm making today. Because it's the first cold snap, it's usually tradition around, for my house at least, that we make our first gumbo. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is not for all of my fellow Cajuns out there, not for those who have made gumbo 47,000 times in their lives, because their mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, estranged uncle or aunt told them and showed them how to make the perfect gumbo for them and their family. No. That's not what this video is for. This video is for all of you who live in New York, Pennsylvania, California, Finland, Norway, Scotland, Belgium, and Denmark, and all other countries and areas that are not aligned, as we could say, with Cajun culture. So making a gumbo is not hard. In fact, it's one of the easiest things to make. But you have to follow a certain number of rules, and I'm not here to tell you how to do it. I'm here to tell you how to do it the way we do it here in Lafayette, Louisiana. Now, when I say how we do it here in Lafayette, Louisiana, I mean specifically my family. The funny thing about it is every Italian family will tell you that their grandmother's spaghetti sauce recipe is the best. And every Chicagoan will tell you that their pizza is the best. And then everyone in New York will tell Chicago to shut the hell up. Their pizza's the best. Here's the thing. If it's done well, they're all the best. They're just the best for those people. This video is for those of you who are like, I really wish I knew how to do a real Cajun gumbo versus what I see on TV or what I get in a restaurant that's not famous for their properly made gumbo. There are two types of gumbo. Now, people are going to go like, what do you mean there's only two types of gumbo? No, I'm not talking about like Cajun chicken sausage or seafood or okra or no, not that. Those are ingredients. I'm telling you about two philosophies of gumbo. The first one is Cajun gumbo. Cajun gumbo is the one that I'm going to be showing you how I do, okay? This is pretty much for those of you who are the Acadian exiles from Canada, the Cajuns to the west side of the Mississippi River. A fairly difficult type of people, I guess, but we're trying, right? And then the other type of gumbo is what's called a Creole gumbo. Now, a Creole gumbo has a lot of different influences. You've got Caribbean, African, and yes, some French and Cajun influences as well, but it's more of a hodgepodge. So I'm going to show you the Cajun one, okay? If you want to do a Creole gumbo, there's plenty of videos for that. This one is just going to show you some tricks on ways that you can do the same gumbo that I make here. The same one that people tell me that they think is just amazing when they visit. And that's great, but this is mine, okay? First thing we want to talk about is the pot. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, we're gonna look at it and see, okay? Number one, I have two pots on the table here with me. The first one is a pot. It's a stock pot. You can get it anywhere, in any store in the world, and we've all seen them. They look like this. It's just a simple metal pot, very thin, okay? You can make a gumbo in this. I never will. And there's a reason for that, is because it can be done, but there's a lot more chances for error and burning the roux, and it's more difficult to deal with. The one I have right here is essentially it is a stew pot, but anyone where I'm at is gonna go, that's a gumbo pot, because of the way it's made. It's a heavier metal. Now they look very similar, but I'm going to show you how you know the difference between them, okay? This is a thin soup stock pot you get anywhere. Hear that sound? very thin, it resonates very well. Now, listen to this. Yeah, that don't give nothing. A lot of it is because it's almost 3/4 of an inch thick on the bottom. It's very thick on the sides. It is tick, and that's a good thing. The reason why is the thick metal on the bottom is going to radiate heat evenly, and it's not going to transfer either the gas burn or if you use electrical or glass top, the heat directly to the food is going to diffuse it along the bottom, which gives it an even heat, and it prevents immediate burning. If it's too thin, you're going to find out real quick on the next part that I tell you is a roux, when you're trying to make it as a very thick flour-based, oil-based paste when you're done with it, and it will have a tendency that the heat will burn through the metal and sear it to the bottom, and you've ruined your gumbo before you've even started. Okay, that's the pot. Now, I'm going to show you a way that you can do it with this, but if you have this, it's even better. Either way. Black iron, steel, it doesn't matter. As long the thicker the pot, the better. A good roaster pot will work for this, and a lot of people have those. Okay, the next most important thing is the roux. Now, normally a roux is a flour-based, essentially a paste, really, if you get it down to the right consistency. You're actually browning the flour in a butter or an oil or a lard, whichever one everyone does it differently. But essentially you're trying to bring the flour to a brown. I have this spoon that my mother gave me when I was a kid. And she calls it a roux spoon, and this is why. This here is for a light roux, this color. This color here, I'll put it in the light so you can see a little better. This color here is kind of a medium brown. That would be for like an étouffée or whatnot. And this dark brown here that's almost black is the roux for gumbo. And I always have this on my stove, and I'm looking at it, and it tells me when I need to stop. Because here's the thing. For a good dark Cajun roux that you need to make a gumbo with, it needs to be as dark as possible without burning. So for those of you who want to make your own roux, go for it. Good luck. It takes time. And I've seen people who've made roux all their lives and they still mess one up. The biggest key to a roux is, number one, keeping it moving. Do not let it stick. Do not let it settle, because the bottom half will burn. The top half will still be light. You need to keep it moving in the bottom of the pan. The second trick to a roux is you have to learn how or know how to cool it immediately. Some people will use onions when they do it, or some people will even try to use room temperature water, which is scary. You can burn yourself. Cold water hitting a hot roux to try to keep it from getting too dark or burning will literally, it can literally pop up in your face. So what I like to do when I make my own roux is I will actually bring a small pot of chicken stock to just below a boil, like steeping. And then whenever I ladle that chicken stock that's just barely less temperature than the roux, it will at least, lighten it up and enough to where it stops burning. That is a lot of effort. In fact, making the roux is the hardest part of making a gumbo, if you make your roux. This is not about that, okay? I'm not telling you to go through all that effort. So I'm gonna give you the hacks now. These are the hacks that you can use to do a gumbo just as good as mine or my grandfather's, who taught me how to make mine, and not have to worry about if you're gonna burn the roux. And this is the key. Comes in a jar. Yeah. Some Cajuns, this is look how brown that is. Okay. Oh wait, here you go. Oh yeah. Okay. Now, some Cajuns, if you're a Cajun, a real true Cajun, like your grandmother taught you how to make gumbo, and she taught you how to brown a roux, please don't go into this video and comment about I'm doing this and this is a horrible thing, it's a travesty thing. This video is not for you. This is for the video who didn't grow up with a grandmother that's going to teach him how to make a roux, or a mom that's going to do it for him. Anyway, What this is about is that anyone can do it. Now, a roux, a dark roux, and they'll actually say dark roux on it, is actually made in bulk here. Now, there are a lot of times when I'll use a jar roux, even when I make my own gumbo, and there's a reason for that. Anytime you make a roux yourself, it's going to be different every time. Very few people can make a roux exactly the same every time. And what that does is it takes away from consistency. You may have a dark roux that's rich and has a nutty flavor to it, and all of a sudden the next roux you make is too dark or it's too light and it doesn't have the same richness. And the thing about good food is good consistency. So sometimes I know a lot of people who make gumbos, even in competition, and they don't make their own roux. They use a jar roux because there are companies like Savoie, Zatarans, Richards. These are all common Cajun companies down here that make roux in bulk. And the best thing about it is they make them pretty much consistently the same every time. And so you can actually go on Amazon, or you can go onto the websites for some of these companies. The most common ones are Savoie, Savoies, Richards, which is Richard, but you know, it's the Cajun French way of saying Richard. Richard. There's Zatarans, which Zatarans is a very large company. They're very well known around the world for their Cajun spices and foods and stuff. You can actually order Cajun roux online on Amazon. They'll ship them in a big jar like this, and that's all you need. Now, here's the key. The more roux you put, the richer and darker and thicker your gumbo will be. They come in a small 8-ounce jar. For me, in a pot like this, a 3-gallon pot, I'll use a whole jar for a gumbo because I like it really rich and thick flavored. Now the way you do it is you bring water to a boil in the bottom of your pot. Okay, I bring it up to a boil, and then I add spoonfuls of the roux until it's all in there, and I use a whisk or even or just a spoon, a ladle, and sometimes a spatula because I want to scrape it off the bottom. Keep it off the bottom. You don't want it to stick, and I keep it going till it dissolves. And you'll know it dissolves because if you pass your spoon through, it won't pick up any lumps. The higher the boil of the water, the quicker it'll dissolve. However, be careful. When you first put in a jarred roux or any roux into boiling water, if the boiling water is boiling too much, what will happen is it'll start to bubble over. Don't be that guy. Yeah, I've done it, so don't worry about it. Once you start dissolving your roux, keep an eye on it. You don't want it to get away from you. Once the roux has dissolved, you'll be able to see it. If you taste it right then, it will taste ridiculously off because roux without seasoning and a flavor to set it is just brown flour. It has no flavor, it has no salt, it has nothing in it. So now we're gonna do the things that are gonna make it different. My grandfather always put chicken stock instead of water to break up his roux because he thought it added a richness, and it does. Here comes hack number 2. To enrich your roux, you can have chicken stock. Some people use beef stock. I don't really care for that. Chicken stock, seafood stock, vegetable stock, whatever. Here's a little hack for you. A company makes these little jars of things called better than bouillon. See, better than bouillon. When I was a kid, my mother would dissolve bouillon cubes to make a quick chicken stock. To do that. And the reason why she would do that is because she could make the chicken stock even richer than a liquid chicken stock. And I get it, but they do something even better. So what I like to do is I like to put like 2 or 3 teaspoons of the chicken stock, and they make one called a roasted vegetable base. This one right here, this is the key. It's a little secret ingredient I like to do because they do a sauteed zucchini and different vegetables, and they make it into a stock, and it adds a flavor richness to the roux. I usually add about a tablespoon of this. You can get this at a Walmart. This isn't even hard to find. Okay, now at this point we've put an enriched stock into our roux base. We now technically have a soup. There's no salt in it. There's no nothing in it. It's okay. You're not gonna eat it like that, so don't try. The next thing is what we put in it to make it a gumbo. Now, technically, once we've done the roux and we've put in this hugely brown liquid into this pot and it's boiling, technically, is that gumbo? No, that's a pot of roux. So, onions. A lot of people will put onions and garlic and celery and stuff. That's great. I usually put like a half of one stalk of celery in mine. And that's just because it's just part of the Cajun trinity of onions, celery, and bell peppers and stuff. But I don't use white, yellow onions in my gumbo. That's because for me, the flavor is a little off. If you put too much, it'll make your gumbo taste odd. I don't even know how to describe it, but when you put white or yellow onions in your gumbo, if you put too much, it changes the flavor. It just changes the flavor profile too much, and I don't like it. But what I do like to use, green onions. You can get these at the store. You can buy them in a jar, actually. You can buy them in a little pack, freezer pack already cut up. You can buy them like that. I grow my own, and I literally will just put them over the pot and chop them with a pair of scissors, get them all the way down. You just go get a bundle of green onions at the store. One whole bundle is perfect. Just cut it all the way down. Perfect. That's all you gotta do. Put your green onion in there. So now that's beginning to put a profile in there. You can add just a little bit of salt. Remember, your salt and your pepper are gonna be added gradually to develop the flavor. If you put too much salt, it's almost impossible to get it out. If you put too much pepper, that's on you, Playboy. So, the peppers. Salt really doesn't matter. I like to use a sea salt. Some people only use kosher salt. Some people use iodized regular salt. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's whatever kind of salt you're most comfortable with. Just add a little bit of salt to bring out the flavors of the stocks. And remember, your chicken stocks and your vegetable stocks, or if you use the Better Than Bouillon paste, have a lot of sodium in them already, so you don't have to use too much. Your pepper profile. Okay, when you're using Cajun cooking, I usually tell people to stick to cayenne pepper only. Cayenne pepper is ubiquitous with Cajun cooking. It's just our flavor profile for hotness. If you use jalapeno, which I've seen a recipe where someone uses jalapeno, I don't see how that's gonna play out. Jalapenos have a very distinct taste, and that would just throw off a gumbo to me. You can use Asian chilies if you want. I don't like using any fresh peppers. And the reason for that, as far as the chilies, like cayennes, because it's hard to regulate how much you're gonna put in. I usually use a dried cayenne pepper powder. A lot of the different companies that make a lot of this different stuff make them. That's just a personal preference because I can measure this out by the teaspoon or sprinkle just a little bit and it's good to go. And that's what we do to season it. Now, the meats. Don't hurt yourself. Simple stuff. A good basic first year gumbo, the one I'm making today is a chicken and sausage. I use chicken thighs. It's a texture thing. Chicken thighs are moist, juicy, the meat is succulent because you're putting it into a soup. If you use breast meat, that's fine, go ahead if that's your texture profile, but I find it to be a little tough and stringy because it boils and then hardens up. It's just breast meat. Chicken thigh meat is always soft. It's always juicy. I love that stuff. So I'm using thigh meat. And you could just throw in boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You're great. The sausage. Again, if you have a place near you that does an actual chicken sausage, you don't have to use andouille. I'm just saying you could do a good Cajun sausage. Do not use any wursts or German sausages. Do not use any Italian sausages. The flavor profile, the spice profile is vastly counteractive to the profiles you've already made. They're not. If you have something with fennel in it, it's just not gonna work. So just stay away from the sages and fennel and those types of, stick to something Cajun. Now, the companies that make the roux also make the sausages, okay? And they also put them in big, giant 4-pound freezer boxes that they can send to you frozen in a block. And Richards, Savoies, Zatarans, there's a lot of companies that do the sausages. And there's some smaller companies that some of my friends use because they love them even more. You want to find a good Cajun sausage. In fact, you can actually get the sausages with the green onions in them, which I actually really like those. Now the different sausages come in mild, hot, Cajun crazy hot, with green onions or without green onions. But here's the thing, for a gumbo, if it's your first one and you're into really spicy food, you love like deep, heavy, spicy Latin flavors or spicy Thai Asian flavors, and you want to get hot Cajun sausage, go ahead. Not me. I like a rich flavor. I like rich flavors. I don't like necessarily where I'm just eating just pepper. That's a misconception about Cajun food. Not all Cajun food's hot. It's not. We like certain hot foods, but the amount of spice that I like is not as high as some people because I like a richness of my flavor. So I use a mild Cajun sausage. This one is actually from Savoy's. I've used Savoy's. I've used Richard's. I've used everyone just because that's what I have. This one was on sale, so I went with this one. I literally had Richard's box sausage here, Savoy's box sausage here. Richard's didn't have any green onion. Savoy's did. I got that one. That's not because of a preference. That's just because this one was $2 cheaper and it had green onion in it. Okay, so this is your sausage. I usually cut my sausages in about a ½ inch wide disc and just drop them in. Usually put them in there. Now, there's also a thing that you can add, another protein you can add on a chicken and sausage gumbo, and it's called Tosso, T-A-S-S-O. It is a piece of pork that is salted and spiced the same way that they do spices and salt on the sausage, but then it's cured. It's cured down, and it comes into a little strip of it. You cut it up into little diced pieces and throw it in there, and as it sits in the gumbo, the longer it sits, the more flavor it's going to add. Now, that is the basics. You put all that in there and you cook it down. You put your green onions, you put your celery, you put your bell pepper if you want. Not a lot. Don't put a lot. You put your cayenne pepper in there. You've already put your roux and your stocks. That's all going and everything else. You put your chicken thighs in. You put your sausage in. Essentially, once you salt and pepper to taste, you can eat it once it's cooked. Don't. Let that sucker simmer. The longer gumbo simmers, the more the flavors will develop. And that's what you want. In fact, you know, the common saying down here is gumbo's always better the second day. That's not just a saying. That's a real thing. I know people that will make a gumbo all day, cool that thing down, throw it in the refrigerator, and they eat it the next day. Because as it cools in the refrigerator, it develops even more flavors. The cayenne pepper starts to break down. And as it breaks down, it actually turns a little bit of sweetness into the roux. And it changes the profile completely. So some people always say it's better the second day. It actually is in a way, but there's no reason why you have to do that. You can eat it as soon as it's ready. Now, this is a big thing for me. Now, this is just for mine. Gumbo filet, okay? Now, filet, gumbo filet, pure ground, is actually green sassafras root that's dried and ground into a powder. That's all it is, sassafras root. And the thing is, it's only when it's green do they grind it up. Some people use sassafras leaves, the green ones. They grind them up, dry them, and put them in. But either way, it's sassafras. Now, some people will only put filet into the gumbo. They'll just sprinkle it on the top of the bowl after they make themselves a bowl. That's fine. I actually add mine before I add this. I add it right after I make my stock and my roux, and I add my stocks to it to make the roux, and it's breaking down. I'll add this in there, and I'll stir it to where it mixes down and boils into it to put this filet flavor into it itself. Some people only put filet in seafood gumbos. I don't know why. You can, it's fine for you. It's totally cool. But this stuff can also, this is a Zatarain's bottle. So many other people make it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You can get it. So you can get your sausage. You can get your Cajun sausage. You can get your filet. You can get your roux. You can get all those things online. Shipped straight to your house. The roux, once you open the jar, you have to keep it in the refrigerator. Of course, your sausage you have to keep frozen. This thing will usually stay for about a year in the cabinet. But yeah. Also, gumbo freezes very well. Freeze it. I usually make a big pot. We'll eat off of it for about 2 or 3 days, and then I'll put them in individual containers so we can warm them up when we're not feeling well. Because if you're not feeling well and you have a big bowl of gumbo, you're feeling a whole lot better. That's how you make a gumbo. Simple. Now, if you're a Cajun and you're getting all worked up, calm thyself. This video is not for you. Yes, there are things that I put in some of my other gumbos that are more complex, more elaborate. I make my own roux and everything else, but this is for everyone else. We're welcoming them to the family. Isn't that part of our heritage? Cajuns will always invite the neighbor over for food, especially if it's gumbo, because that's how we are. We are one big family here. We don't care about your race. We don't care about what your political beliefs are. When it comes down here, it's all about the gumbo, baby. And football. Okay, so let me just wrap up a few more questions I know people are going to ask. Why didn't I put okra in my gumbo? Why didn't I put tomatoes in my gumbo? Why didn't I put this, that, or the other? Okay, again, this is a Cajun gumbo, okay? Some Cajuns put okra in their gumbo. That's an okra gumbo, okay? Okra is an African ingredient that was put into Creole cooking. So that's more of a Creole gumbo ingredient. And also, if you don't know how to cook okra properly, do not put it in your gumbo. You will turn it into a slimy mess if you don't know how to use okra. Okra gumbo is one of the harder ones to do because okra's textures, when it breaks down, can cause you to have more nightmares in your gumbo than you're willing to accept. The other thing is, where are the tomatoes in your gumbo? Well, that again, that is also a Creole influence. That's New Orleans and east towards Mobile, Alabama. That's not here. It is considered a sin, and you got to go to confession if you put tomatoes in your gumbo around here. Now, that's nothing against tomato okra-based gumbos. I've had them. I've gone to New Orleans and eaten them, and they were quite good for what they were. They're not mine, but that's theirs. So this is a Cajun simple gumbo that anyone can make at home. You just got to get the right ingredients. It's all about the ingredients and the patience and getting that roux broken down in a pot that it's not going to stick to. It's not that bad. Everyone enjoy your first cool day of the year. Now, for those of you who are living farther north than me, this is not your first cool day of the year, but I live in South Louisiana, okay? Hurricane Laura wiped out Lake Charles less than an hour this way, and the Gulf of Mexico is right behind the phone, approximately 25 miles that way. It get hot, baby. 3 days ago, it was 85 degrees, and I was ready to just quit. But today, it's 54 for the low in the morning, and I went outside and drank me a cup of coffee on my back patio and froze my toes off. That's a good time. All right. LSU, good luck, brothers. It's going to be a rough season. You lost a lot of great players, but I know you got a lot of young, hungry people, but unfortunately you're only playing SEC teams this year, which means there are no breaks, and that's going to be rough. Cajuns, keep doing what you're doing because 3-0, baby, that's how we like to do it. Saints, I still love you. All right, everybody. I'm going to go get back to work. Talk to y'all later. Bye.